You are now entering a dangerous liberty zone where God-given natural rights are held sacred and exercised. This is your warning. Tyranny, fascism, and censorship will not be tolerated. Ideas will be exchanged freely. Rigorous debate and open discourse is encouraged. If you are weak and your beliefs are fragile, you should leave now. Prepare yourself. We are now live on the Dangerous Liberty Podcast. All right, folks, bear with me here. We had a major audio issue going on here. Bear with me just a second here. I don't know what's going on. All right, folks, hopefully you can hear me. Oh, sorry about that. Of course, my audio switched on my computer. So anyways, hope everybody's out there is having a wonderful Thursday. Welcome to another Dangerous Liberty Podcast. We got a lot to cover and very little time to do that. I was up all night doing some stuff, and we're not going to keep this one very long. So anyways, folks, we got a lot going on. Number one, I know there's a lot of new people in the chat. Thank you for coming in, and all of our normal folks. We got Otter over there. We got Lori Matthews. We got GS70 Stealth. We got Rage Bronson. Some new folks. We got Ballistic, Honey Badger. We got Beast Hog, Slate 79, all of those things. So I want to welcome everybody. And the first thing I want to kind of say is that, number one, I always welcome disagreement. And one of the things that I've tried to do throughout this investigation is try to bridge the gap and not turn disagreement into this, I don't know, where everybody's fighting over or fighting against, their particular theory. There's been lots of theories out there under this particular event. A lot going on. And I don't even know what the source of that. I've talked about that quite a bit throughout this. I find that odd that, we can have one event and we can have so many different competing ideas and competing theories and everything else going on there. I do think there's some things happening underneath the surface. With that being said, I think there's a lot of good people out there that believe certain things. And I think the more that we can work together, and that could be us having dialogue, or, again, we've had multiple different content creators that completely disagree with me, and I completely disagree with them. We've had them on and talked and things like that. And I think that those have been extremely productive. And the fact of the matter is like, if you're really in it for the truth, that's what you got to do, right? You got to get somewhere where your own ideas are challenged. And that's the type of working environment that I would like to have and I would like to foster. And that's the type of environment that I'd like to foster on this channel, where you guys can come on here and you can disagree with me and I can disagree with you respectfully and all the things. One of the things I will say is that we got some rules on this channel, if you haven't been here before, for these live chats. Disagreements welcome, but name calling, not going to be tolerated. If you're going to troll, we're just going to bounce you out. If you want to engage and exchange ideas, I'm all about it, man. And I would rather us disagree. I mean, disagreement's kind of fun anyhow, right? The other thing too is if you want to support us, number one, we do have memberships and things like that, Patreon, all those things. Like, subscribe if you haven't done so already. We got a lot of exciting stuff coming up. I'll talk a little bit about my interview with Brian Harple. We also got some additional interviews coming up in the very near future. And then I have a really cool interview. I'm not gonna tease it right now. December 1st, but I'll tell you about that interview, and I think you guys will find that interesting. And of course, we're always going to have gun content and all the stuff that we normally do, and we're going to continue to pursue the Charlie Kirk assassination and investigate this. And and again, I want to make sure you guys have a place where you can come and we can talk about some different things. We definitely want to talk about some ballistics. And before we get into that, I will share with you guys some insight into Brian Harple, just my personal interaction. I'm not going to get into so much the interview. We're going to have that. We're going to post that interview. My plan is to do it on Saturday morning. We're still editing that. It was a 3.5-hour interview. You can probably figure I don't know, 4 hours to every hour, 4 hours of editing to every hour, if not more. So there's a lot of editing to be done. And then a lot of B-roll and a lot of other stuff in there. I think you guys will find that informative. One of the things that I made sure I did, he came on Sunday. So one of the things I made sure I did was watch Sean Ryan's interview on Friday night when he released it on Patreon. I bought it, went through it with notes. I wanted to make sure I didn't have too many redundant questions. And then I wanted to make sure I answered the questions he didn't, and then take some notes on the things that I wanted to dig a little deeper. So we got into the weeds quite a bit. My perception of Brian Harpel, I'm just going to be honest with you. I didn't know what to expect. Personally, I think he's one of the most sincere, honest guys I've ever met. And I know some of you guys have already, I know there's a lot of people out there that in their minds, they've kind of demonized these guys to the point there's no coming back, and that's fine. You're welcome to your opinions. I respect your opinion. But I'll just tell you right now, I feel like, and you guys tell me after that interview what your perception of him is. But I feel like he was extremely forthright and honest, and we got a lot of really good information. One of the things I will do is we'll talk a little bit, and then I will definitely get to your guys' questions. I kind of want to make this primarily a Q&A session tonight. We will prioritize super chats, but I will get as many of the live questions in as possible as well. So one of the things that I did, again, this is something I've talked a lot about in many different shows, and I never put it out like I did on Twitter. And if you're not following us on X, make sure you go follow us on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it these days. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the ballistics, because the ballistics for me have always, there's no doubt about it that we have an anomalous terminal ballistic event. I will tell you that right now. That being said, I've never thought, because I've just seen too many different things with ballistics. With ballistics, what you're dealing with is an extremely high speed, energetic event that is unpredictable, and weird things do happen. There are always, for instance, when it comes to ammunition, and for those of you guys don't know, we teach long range for a living. That's kind of, we also teach tactical carbine, handgun, medical courses, a lot of stuff. But on my YouTube channel, I like to do a lot of long range content, because I will say that's kind of where I love. I'm a long range nerd. We have long range courses, basic through advanced. Long range is something I love. Again, former sniper, former Green Beret, all the stuff, right? But the fact is that you will see some crazy things when it comes to ballistics. There's no doubt about it. And the things that make ballistics unpredictable, and I was having a conversation with Chris Martin earlier, who I have a lot of respect for. I really like Chris. We disagree a lot, which is fine, right? One of the things he was kind of, he was, and I've heard him say this in the past. It's like, ballistics aren't unpredictable. Like, physics are a thing, and, if it comes in this point, it's going to basically go out this point. I disagree with that. And the reason is all the things that you can't see that happen on literally the microscopic level, right? Whether you're seeing the deformation of the projectile in certain ways. And again, there's so many variables when it comes to especially terminal ballistics. The one thing I spent a lot of my life studying is internal ballistics. So everything that happens in the firearm. So right over there, I have my reloading bench. That's all internal ballistics. And then you have external ballistics of basically understanding how to get that round to your target over distance. So all the things that you're going to take into account, your environmentals, air density, wind, a lot of things going on there, right? So that's your external ballistics. And, if you're a shooter, that's the thing that makes it fun and is also challenging. And then we have terminal ballistics. What happens when a projectile actually hits the target? And that's where things get weird, because a lot of weird things do happen. And the variables that we're dealing with just on the terminal ballistics are, the angle that the projectile actually hit the target. And that's a variable, by the way. Densities and changing densities of the tissue that it hits. And then, of course, another thing that actually affects it is the spin rate. So the twist of the round. Ballistic coefficient actually has an impact on terminal ballistics as well. And then, of course, whatever that round is engineered from. And that's where things get a little interesting too. And we see a lot more with that, whether you're shooting pistol, rifle, like a carbine, or a long range rifle, a bolt gun or something along those lines. Is what we've seen is a major surge in different engineering when it comes to what those rounds will definitely, will do upon impact. We have everything that we have rounds that are designed for penetration. We have rounds like tumble upon impact right here. These tumble upon impact. What these things do, this is a 30-06, and they're available in 308 and some other calibers as well. When you see what this thing does in ballistic gel, it's nuts, man. I mean, it doesn't penetrate but like an inch or two before it starts tumbling. I don't necessarily think, but I don't know. And this is where we get into weird things because we don't know. Well, first of all, many of you, I think, don't believe that he was shot with a 30-06. We can go down that road, and we will in just a second. And then the other part of that is, for those that you do, you think that, well, I don't know. I think generally most people kind of feel like he wasn't shot with a 30-06, and we're going to go down that road and kind of explore those options and talk about all those things. One thing I did want to tell you too, we do have moderators in the chat. So again, if you're gonna be disrespectful, which I hope you won't, and hopefully we can have an adult conversation here, even if we disagree, you basically get one warning depending on what you're going on, and after that, we're just going to ban you. So, we have all this engineering that's going into the terminal performance of those rounds. Now, we can talk what's happened in the last 10, 15 years, and then we can go much further back. I mean, frangible rounds have been around for a really long time. They've been making frangible rounds for 30-06 since like the 50s. And then we get into things like varmint rounds. We get into things like hunting rounds. And I think that's one of the problems that we have when we have this discussion is most people have always used 30-06 or their dad's 30-06 or their grandfather's 30-06 for hunting. And I think primarily, we're talking about 150 and probably mostly like 170 up to even 200 grain projectiles. And that's where you're going to see. And when you're shooting those at 2,700 feet per second, you are going to see extreme terminal performance where we talk about, even though I think there's a lot of hyperbole involved with that too, like, oh, it's going to blow his head clean off or going to take his neck. It's not, right? There's some of that stuff is just exaggerated. And I'll tell you a good example of this that we can all look back on. If you don't know, there's 300 Win Mag, which is about 1,000 foot-pounds more, depending on which round you get and all those things, but it's significantly more energy than 30-06, for sure. And what we also know is that, this is a little controversial too. Thomas Crooks was shot by the Secret Service with 300 Win Mag. And yeah, we had significant terminal ballistics. It went basically in through his mouth and then out the back of his shoulder and all this stuff. We saw that. But what it didn't do is blow his head clean off. And without a doubt, that 300 Win Mag is significantly more powerful than 30-06. So I think we need to understand that. And then we get into the variability of all the different commercially available ammunition out there. And that ranges up and down. And then we also talk about, the other thing that you have to talk about is, condition of that ammunition. Is it brand new? Has it been, because that will, if it's been exposed to moisture, we see a significant drop in muzzle velocity, energy, all of those things. Then you get into the projectile itself. What is that actually made out of? And that helps us get an idea of what we expect to see. And then, of course, the weight of the bullet. All right, we have to know at a minimum to even get close to anything that we can sort of predict is we have to have muzzle velocity. We have to have the weight of the bullet itself. Was it you can get as low as 90 grain or 55 grain, as a matter of fact, with the accelerator rounds. So you can get a 55 grain 30-06. But typically what we're talking about is, 90 grain all the way up to like 220 grain 30-06 rounds. So that changes everything as well. And then, of course, the other thing that is important is the twist rate of that barrel and also the condition of the barrel. So if it's not spinning fast enough, if it's a heavier projectile, we need a faster twist rate. So, a 1 in 12 twist rate is not going to stabilize a 190 grain bullet. It just won't. It's not spinning fast enough. So we don't get the gyroscopic stability that we would want. And all those things play effect, because what happens is if that bullet is not stabilized and it's already yawing when it hits the target, it's going to completely change everything when it comes to the terminal performance. And look, today and yesterday, I've been digging through a bunch of different books and some other research when it comes to terminal performance that I've actually found pretty interesting. One of these I'm going to give you a reference to, and I highly recommend that you download this because it was very interesting. It's called Gunshot Wounds. Matter of fact, I'm going to share my screen with you real quick so that you guys can see this. And this was a free download. So let's share the screen. Throw that up there. And man, this thing is 400 pages of just a lot of information. I thought I knew a lot about terminal performance, and there's some parts of this that I'm going to share with you that I kind of went through and just highlighted real quick. I'm not going to give you a college class on terminal ballistics, but I did find some things that I think you guys will find interesting. So you can go download this. And this is by Dr. Vincent Diamaio. I highly recommend this, and you guys should check this out. So, man, you get down here into like it talks about a lot of terminal performance, and you get down here into like the 150, 160, and it has a lot of pictures, and they just get worse and worse and worse. But it is interesting because some of them are not what you expect. Some of the pistol round impacts completely blew my mind. And anyways, you guys can check that out. I'm going to go through a couple pages of this, and because there are a couple of elements in this that I thought were extremely important and relevant to what we're talking about. So yeah, I mean, those are the things that you've got to know before you can predict anything. So anybody that says, I just reject it outright, and you can disagree with me, and that's fine. But the fact of the matter is there are some circumstances where we could get a 30-06 round that is barely going just above supersonic. And that could be a hand load. That could be right here we have a low recoil. So when you get into some of those things, or you get into old ammunition or defective ammunition, all of these things. And the thing is, when it comes to ammunition, like, even within this one box, folks, there's going to be variability when it comes to performance. And that's brand new ammunition. I don't know what was going on with them. I don't think that Tyler was some hand loader. I don't. But I don't know what his dad did, and I don't know what his grandfather did. And it is very common. And again, most of us have went out and shot hunting ammunition, but it is also very common to take a 30-06 and go out and do just some recreational shooting. And especially if it was something that they did a lot with the kids or something like that, I can see them either hand loading lower recoil ammunition, buying lower recoil ammunition. All of this stuff is commercially available. And the fact is we just can't come to a conclusion until we have that information. That's a fact. And you may not like it, you may disagree with it. It's just true. So, yeah. And, Henry right here saying, I think the kid shot grandpa's rounds. I do too. I don't think he went and bought rounds. We also know from the charging documents that there were fired targets in his apartment. And I know, again, some of you don't believe anything in the charging documents, and that's fine. But, when we look at the amount of evidence that we do have, I'll share the biggest problem that I have with this whole case. Is number one, I don't mind entertaining. And if I see evidence of a different shooter or whatever else, folks, I am genuinely and honest with you when I say I'm completely open to that thing. The fact is, though, we got to stay evidence-based. And, just the other day, I went through all the different debunked claims that have come out of this case. None of which came from the government. Tyler Robinson was a right winger. Tyler Robinson was never at UVU. And I know if you follow Candace, you still believe that. That's fine. That's pretty hard pill to swallow for me. The event was only announced on September 8th or 9th. So Tyler wouldn't have enough time to plan for it. We debunked that, folks. That was actually announced August 27th. He had over 10 days. Tyler Robinson had a limp. I remember that one came out. He had a handicap, and what they were trying to do was cover up the idea that he actually didn't have a gun in his pants. there was all these things coming out, and it's a little bewildering. It was also said that landscaping work was done by Matt Robinson, Tyler's father. That was a lie, and I don't know why that was put out in the internet. Charlie was shot by someone in an underground hatch. We debunked that. Charlie was shot from another location. Some of you still feel he was. Surveillance footage from the rooftop was AI because you could see people going through trees and things like that. I debunked that while that was there. So the point is that there's been lots of misinformation. The security guys took him to the wrong hospital. That's not true. They took him to the nearest hospital with a trauma rating. So there's all of this misinformation that has come out and disinformation that's come out. And that's fine if you're not going to believe the government. But you also have to recognize that there are other people trying to deceive you too. And they have all kinds of different motives. Some of them are grifters. I think there are foreign adversaries, and I think there are political adversaries that are adding to some of this chaos as well. I do. I think this is part of this is extremely engineered, and we can go through some of those potential motives in just a few minutes if you guys like or care about or anything else. But here's the main problem that I have with Tyler's not the shooter. It just doesn't make sense to me. So for those of us that out there that believe like, hey, there's this big conspiracy, right? And we have, I don't even know. We have all these people that have come up with this extremely sophisticated conspiracy. They're extremely intelligent because they were never detected. They were never seen. They were never heard. They apparently got shots off that no one else detected or anything else, whether you think that was a suppressed gun or whatever else. And there's problems with all of those things. For one, is a line of sight. Number two, I don't know how anybody gets a shot off in the crowd without being seen. I think that is ridiculous. As someone that shoots guns for a living at a professional level and trains people and pistol, carbine, I have all kinds of suppressed guns. I shoot, to me, that's just ridiculous. And you can disagree with me, that's fine. But we put together this extremely sophisticated plan, and then we pull it off, right? We did what we need to do. We're on the exfil. We get off the X, and we're like, hey, man, we had a patsy. Right? Oh, what gun did he have? Oh, a 30-06. You know what? I brought my 5.56 today, man. So we're going to create a patsy with a 30-06 out of all of that sophistication and make it very clear to everybody that he's a patsy, and we missed that little detail. That doesn't make sense to me. And I haven't found anybody that can reconcile that point for me. So that's the biggest problem that I have with this. And then we also get into a lot of the other evidence that's really hard to dismiss. We get into eyewitness testimony, which all go one way. I'm sure there are outliers. I don't doubt that there's somebody in there that says they heard something or saw something out of 3,000 people. But I've talked to 4 different people on the ground. I've talked to many other witnesses, either on the phone. And again, they all felt like the sound came thereabouts. None of them being with pinpoint, thereabouts the Lossy building. And then the other thing that I see from the footage that we have, there's a clear energy transfer straight to the rear. These are all things I've said before, and I know some of you that haven't been here before. I want to let you know exactly where I stand. So that's where I stand on this. And again, you're welcome to disagree. I've seen a lot of conjecture. I see lots of jumps, illogical jumps. Like, this is what I think is happening, and then I'm going to look at and try to find the evidence or some sort of circumstantial evidence that can somehow make this a reality. So we make something artificial up in our mind with our imagination that we think happened. And then we have to take even more fantastical leaps to make that thing work within the environment. That's not how you approach things from a logical standpoint, in my opinion. And, again, I welcome people to disagree with me on all those points. All right, this is one of the things that old Ghost Guardian is saying. Well, let's go to Snaffy Magoo here. I'm still having a hard time believing Tyler was a real person. I mean, we have him on footage at a traffic stop. He's a real person. What What we haven't seen is clear imagery of Tyler on campus, just potato cam and clippage footage. Folks, there's a lot of stuff that we haven't seen. And I don't know where people understand. I don't know what people expect on this. This is a capital murder case. The government is not trying to convince you. That's not their job. As a matter of fact, if the government, and right now it's the state of Utah gave all the evidence that many people want, it would be a violation of the Constitution. All right. They would absolutely be violating Tyler Robinson's constitutional rights to a fair trial. And that's not how our justice system works. So to some extent, yeah, we should all definitely continue to look and continue to try to find evidence and stay logic based and be aware that other people are trying to trick us. Yeah, the government tries to trick us, but the FBI, the internet lies just as hard, if not harder. And there are people out there with different motives trying to make you believe certain things. And the only way that you can distinguish is if you go off evidence, logic, common sense. I mean, that is the only thing that is going to give you, cognitive security. If, I don't believe the government, but if the government's telling me it's raining and somebody tells me, no, it's not raining, and I just want to believe, whatever is opposite of the government. And I go outside and I'm getting soaked and wet and, they're like, no, the government's lying to me. Like you can't be so biased that you can't see the forest through the trees. And again, we got to find that balance. And I know it's hard because we have been lied to so many times by the FBI. The FBI has lied about January 6th. The FBI has definitely lied about January 13th. I got lots of opinions on that. The FBI has lied about, or the government has lied about COVID. The government lied about the vaccines. The government lied about MK Ultra. The government lied about the JFK assassination. I share this all the time. I'm probably about 60% of the way that, I don't think that we actually went to the moon. I think there's a good case for that. Something I haven't explored too deeply, but I am very suspicious of the moon landing. So I'm with you guys on this, whether you believe it or not. And that's the other problem too, is like the moment that we come to a divergence in our beliefs, and this is one of the things I think enemies of us, political enemies, foreign adversaries, and ideological enemies. Man, I think there are so many ideological enemies at work right now in manipulating the American people, using the Charlie Kirk assassination to do this because we're just primed. We're primed for it and we're vulnerable and they realize it. And that's why we're getting this flood of information and why you're getting palm guns and camera guns and, it's a hologram. And people are jumping out of hatches and there's lasers and drones. Like every single one of those theories are only one of them can exist. So all the rest are lies. There's only one theory that is the actual truth. So we just got to be careful about that. And I'm not saying believe me. I don't care if you believe me or not. What I think we need to do though is we need to stick together and have each other's backs and talk to one another with respect and understand that we are not the enemy just because, you believe in the palm gun and I believe whatever I believe, or you believe that Tyler was never on campus or whatever else. Now, where I do think that some of that stuff goes a bridge too far is when we start accusing people of murder with zero evidence. That is immoral. It's un-American and it has real consequences for people out there. And I think that's where we need to draw the line. And that used to be an American principle. Like we didn't do that. And that's what made us different from banana republics. When you have the masses of people thinking it's okay to accuse somebody because of your perception of an event, most of which like people don't even understand what's going on. They have no professional background on some of this stuff. So it looks weird to them. It looks suspicious to them when in reality, a lot of it's not. And we can go through, I'll cover some of the stuff for security, very surface level, because I don't want you to have to listen to the same thing twice when you hear my interview with Brian Harpole. Real quick, you definitely have a Henry Dell's in the house. What do you think about the judge on the case not wanting the case broadcasted in court? I think that is a real freaking problem. Look, if this case, hopefully it gets, we have cameras in that court. if they want to put the final nail in the coffin in whatever tiny bit of trust that we have left in the American institutions, making sure that that court, that trial is not televised, that'll do it. So I think that's a huge mistake. I think Erica has talked on this. She wants the entire thing televised, and I think it would just be prudent to do so. Look, this was a devastating and real emotional impact for a lot of people out there. I know a lot of people are just like, they didn't know who Charlie Kirk was till September 10th. And a lot of people are kind of jumping on this bandwagon. And I do see a lot of people that just think this is fun. And like, I've been covering and watching Charlie Kirk for many, many years. I watched his content nonstop. He's somebody that when I talk to people, and one of the things I fall back even on this channel a lot, like I want to make sure that I talk to the people out there, and I fail sometimes on Twitter. I'll just tell you. And I try to stay away from Twitter. Twitter is Satan's kitchen right there. But I try. I really do. And I try to make sure that we keep dialogue open, and we talk to one another with respect, and we learn to not be so emotionally attached to our ideas. I think that's so important. Like you can't feel like you're being personally attacked when someone is just disagreeing with you or presenting their point of view. For some reason, as Americans, we've lost some level of maturity to where, and I just think it's like the political climate of the last, I don't know, probably 15 years. We're so in our, especially, look, the left is, I'll just tell you right now, I think that the left has created this climate, with the Nazi, or if you believe anything outside of leftist, hard left-wing ideology, and I know it's not everybody, right? But if you get into these discussions with them, whether it's climate change, politics, Trump, or whatever else, you're Hitler, you're a Nazi, and everybody's fed up with it. And then what happened was we kept dealing with that, and then the right started hitting back, and of course we got Trump in, which is kind of, especially for his first term, he was kind of our spirit animal. We wanted somebody in there that would sit there and make fun of the news media that was in there asking stupid questions. We wanted that. And I'll tell you, I do feel a little less enthused about this term, and I thought it was going to be the opposite of that. Definitely going into the election, I think everybody's hopes and everything else, I think we see some, I don't know, definitely not performing as much as I would. So yeah, I hope, Henry, that we have that court case broadcasted. This is what happens. You don't sleep. Summertime says the art of war has changed. No one needs to invade the U.S. We are being taken down from within, in my opinion. I 100% agree. This has happened economically. We see this with immigration. We see this with ideology that's being spread through our schools. By the way, I think our schools are one of the worst things. And it is the apparatus of infiltration. Our public schools are the point of infiltration. And this is where we're being destroyed from within our schools. It's not the only place, culture, everything else. And then we add that with immigration, and we add the fact that we have all of these people coming into our country, and, we're just not the melting pot anymore, right? So they're not naturalizing. And so what we're seeing is we're just seeing these segments of third world countries gather together in these other places, and we're not. And part of this is just the pride of America is gone. Like people aren't proud to be an Americans anymore. And we've allowed different people and different elements within this country to like downplay the idea of the greatness and the pride that we have as being Americans. I grew up in the 80s, man. Everybody was hardcore. Like, I'm an American first. I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you disagree with me. I will fight for your right so that we can have that disagreement. That is completely gone by the wayside. And there's a lack of pride of being an American. We've let other countries influence us. We've let influences within our own country kind of us downplay like the pride that we're supposed to have in the greatest freaking country on earth with the greatest people on earth. And then we have places like Dearborn Heights. I'm actually from that area originally. I was born in Dearborn. Actually, I was born in Garden City. Michigan, still in Wayne County. But I grew up, my dad still lives in Dearborn Heights. I actually grew up in Texas. I moved to Texas. But long story short, man, I go back to Dearborn and it's nuts to me. When you see street signs, you see things like that in Arabic. And I was just there, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 months ago. And it's not getting better. Like that should happen in the United States. And what we're going to end up seeing is we're going to see our country get turned into London and England and many other places in Europe. And like, we got to put an end to that. Let's see. We got another super chat here. Jonathan Crawl 6275. What's your opinion of Rob McCoy saying his son Mikey had blood all over him when he's filmed walking away as soon as he's shot? I mean, at a minimum, I think he got it wrong. I don't know what to think about, Rob McCoy. He's definitely, look, I don't even want to say suspicious. He's different, right? I don't know what's going on with that. Because here's the problem with all this stuff, right? And this is like, I think we have to have a little bit of self-discipline, a little mental discipline. You can be weird and not have plotted to kill Charlie Kirk. Now, if he did, if TPUSA was in on it and all these other things, I'm all about it. Let's go after it. All right. But some of the stuff that they are like, it's just such a huge leap. All right. There's lots of different companies out there that have these weird individuals tied to it or people that we don't understand. I don't know enough about Rob McCoy to really get into it. I don't know. Maybe if I watched some of his content, I'd feel like I know him a little bit better or whatever else, but I don't have an explanation for you. It's weird. I don't know if there was a conversation he misunderstood. I don't know. I wish I would love to interview him to ask him those questions and to get a better insight into who that guy is and some of the other key players within TPUSA. What I am afraid of, because I believe in what Charlie believed, right? He believed in, the politics that we have. One of the biggest problems that we still have in the United States has been completely brushed over. I don't care if you think Tyler Robinson was involved in it or not, but the fact of the matter is we have transgenderism being pushed all over this country. It's disgusting. It's a mental illness. It's nothing that we should tolerate, and we shouldn't let the mentally ill dictate policy within our country. That's a fact, and that's something that Charlie Kirk was pushing hard against, and I feel like since he's been gone, there's been a void from that. The other big voice behind that is Riley Gaines. I haven't seen her out there in the public. I think she just had a baby. But there's some things that TPUSA that we're doing and are doing that they did better than anybody else when Charlie was around. And I do think that a lot of people saw TPUSA as an enemy and a political obstacle. And I do think it's very potential that there are elements that are taking advantage of this, taking advantage of Charlie's assassination. They're capitalizing on it. And they're doing to TPUSA what they could have not have done when Charlie was alive, and that is destroy it. And now I want to put that in perspective too. Look, for those of you that are all on X and we're all in this thing and we're following all these different people and we feel like this is the hottest topic, and it's definitely one of the hottest topics in the United States. That being said, I still think we're in a little bit of an isolation bubble where we think that more people are as interested in this as we are, and I think we're mistaken. I think TPUSA's, all their donations and things like that, I think they're doing well. I also understand that there is allegations of financial issues. Do I think that should be looked into? Do I think that a couple $1 million of whatever, I don't care if it's $100 million. I mean, Charlie was such a powerhouse and he was such the foundation of what TPUSA was. I don't think that necessarily like a couple $1 million missing or unaccounted for. And I don't even think we know that, right? Like, I know this is a little bit of outside auditing taking place. These are not internal auditors. We've gotten a little bit of information with there. The point is we have a incomplete information set for sure. And we don't really know what's going on or what other accommodations or agreements they've made with the IRS or their tax lawyers or whatever else. So again, I think some of the stuff we got to let flush out and just be careful. I'm a gal, yo. It makes me sick when someone isn't proud to be an American, like the communists in New York City. I couldn't agree with you more. This is the greatest country on earth. You know, I feel a little bit tricked. I was a young guy at 9/11, and but I already had a family. I just had a son. I was 21 years old when 9/11 happened, and I was already had a good job. Was doing well for a young guy. 9/11 happened, and like 2 days later, I was in the recruiting station, and I was so angry as a young man that we were attacked, and yeah, and then spent the next 11 years with timeshares in Iraq and Afghanistan and other places, right? Just going back and forth, back and forth. And I love that time. With that being said, I lost a lot of friends, and I do think we were tricked. But with that being said, we are still the greatest country on earth. We are the last hope for this planet. And if we let this country fall, there's nowhere else to go, folks. I've been all over the world. I've got to do a lot of really cool things. There is no country like the United States. Great work, Gary. Cash Patel is a lucky spanker. Cash Patel is probably one of my biggest disappointments, second only to Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi, I trust her as far as I could throw her. If I could whisper in Trump's ear to get her fired tomorrow. The thing is, one of the disconnects that I have when it comes to these politics and these, politically appointed folks is it becomes hard to figure out what they're doing or not doing and what the executive branch is telling them to do or to not do. Is it because Pam Bondi just sucks? Or is it because she's being told to do that? And there's a mix of both, I'm sure, no matter what. But it's hard to distinguish that, some of those things. I'm a gal. Thank you for your service. Thank you. America, love it or leave it. Couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, if you don't like it here, you're not going to be happy anywhere else. This is a fact, and this is what drives me nuts, and why my oldest is homeschooled. He's in high school. We're here in West Virginia. The middle school is actually a really good school. Right? It has its problems, but it's for most public schools, it's really good. But my oldest is homeschooled, and that's the thing is like we've been taught to, and the same thing is happening with white males today, right? Like we have demonized white males. We have demonized so much of what we are as a nation and what made us, all the things that made us strong are the things that we're being attacked and we're being told to suppress, and that's not important. And those are the worst things about America. That is what made us the superpower that we are. That is what made us the land of the free. And the more that we get rid of those things, we suppress those principles, the weaker we're going to get. And they know that. And there's so much talk of Israel. Look, I'm indifferent to Israel, I'll be honest with you, but we have a lot of other enemies too. We have China. We have literally every other country. All of the other countries out there are either enemies or frenemies. They don't want us to succeed. All of these other countries are parasites in some way to the United States because they either want our money, they want us to be able to protect them with our armed forces. Like that's why one of the reasons that Canada doesn't have a strong military force. They know that we're here standing guard, ready to risk our men and women so that they don't have to. There's other reasons too. It's not just as simple as that. And I get some of this stuff is pretty nuanced. Let's see what else we got up here. Look up 1209 North Orange Street, Wilmington, Delaware. 300,000 political Fortune 1,000 companies, same address, including Candace. I will look that up. We'll look it up. I'm not going to do it right now. Julia Rose became a member. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. If you want to help us and support us by being a member, we appreciate that. All we know is the FBI released court docs and Tyler is innocent until proven guilty. If he didn't fire the 30-06, what's your next leading theory? I would say that my next leading theory, because I do think that it was, okay, there's a couple of things that I think that we can't get away from. I cannot say with what we know that it definitely came from that spot, the alleged spot where allegedly Tyler Crooks was. What I do think is that it came in a very narrow angle just based on the energy transfer and everything else that we see. So I would say that we have to find another line of sight. And as a matter of fact, I'll just pull this up real quick. Of course, I closed it earlier. Folks, if you haven't seen it, one of the things that we did do is I did go out to UVU. We got a 3D scan of the entire facility. And we've made that available to everybody. And this is one of the things that it allows you to do is we can go through here and we can look at lines of sights and, you know, where it is possible to have taken a different shot. And it helps us to get rid of, you know, kind of weed out some of the nonsense. Make sure this is the right file. But I'll pull this up and I'll share the screen with you. And I'll tell you, there's only really one other spot that I could see that I can find a line of sight that would be concealed enough. And this is a huge program. And even though I got a pretty nice computer back there, it takes a little while to open up. So you can download this. The other thing that we just recently did is we got a little bit smaller file version of Blender, a Blender version of this that you can download. If not, you'll have to download. It's called Rhino 8. So the point is that you can kind of go through, see what's possible, what's not possible. I've sent it out to a lot of different other content creators, other people that are investigating this. I think it's an extremely powerful tool. We spent weeks. So we went out there, we scanned the whole area, and there's that portion of it. But then what we have to do is we have to build up the tent and make sure all of that, and we have to build that from scratch. And CJ Carenti contacted me, and he did all that work for free. And it was weeks and weeks. He had a team of engineers. It's tens of thousands of dollars and man hours that went into this. I'm extremely grateful that he did that. And I will now share my screen with you so that you guys can see this. So, man, and I think I pulled up, hold on real quick. Sorry, folks, I wasn't planning on doing this. And that's what the, unfortunately, yeah, no, this is should be correct. All right. So let me remove that. We're going to share a screen and I will show you what we can do with this. All right. So let's pull this up and I'll show you the only spot that I think there is another shot possible from. And this is the wrong version of this, but that's okay because I'll show it to you anyways. All right. So you can go through here and you can map out trajectories. You could draw lines from one spot to the next. And the cool thing about this is that you can draw that line. You can see if you have actually a line of sight. Now, the only other place, and I did pull up the only other place that you really have a line of sight and could be somewhat concealed, because, you know, one of the things just going out there, like this place is so much smaller than it looks, so much smaller. Like the whole area where the amphitheater area is, I mean, it's like within a baseball diamond. It really is. But anyways, right here, we have the computer science building. And back here a little bit, if I'd have pulled up the right one, there's an extension. There's another portion of it that actually goes up another story or two. That is the only other place that has a line of sight. So I would say that is the other theory. All of these other spots, and, you know, I'm just going to do it, even if I have to talk through this a little bit. All the other spots actually Yeah, this is it. All the other sponsors don't have a line of sight. I mean, they don't. Or you're so exposed that it doesn't make sense that you would ever have, that you'd be concealed enough to get away with it. It just, I mean, some of these things just aren't plausible. So that's my other theory, and we'll come back to that in a second. Do you believe that we should leave NATO? No, I don't. Because here's why. Currently, we run NATO. Like, NATO doesn't exist without us. And really, while I'm sure there's some America, its ambassadors and politicians and everything else, they get influenced by NATO. But the fact is that one of the things that we do in the United States is that we put a lot of pressure on other countries by, with, and through NATO. So it is, I think it's more of a tool to the United States than it is to anybody else. Yeah, it spreads a little bit of influence, but it's primarily, look, NATO doesn't exist without the United States, period. I appreciate your comments, and Gary. Pam Bondi is not very smart. Couldn't agree more. Can you explain why Google Trends is BS? Yes, and I almost did a video on this. The reason that it's BS, and we need more time. And I do have a video that I just decided not to put out. It's BS because you can't replicate the results. And when you go in, you start looking at and understanding how Google creates these things. So like what I did for multiple days is, number one, I pulled up Baron Coleman's results. I could never replicate those, never once. The exact same search. Now, many of you are going to say, well, somebody completely got rid of those results or whatever, right? Fine. All right. We'll buy into that. Well, what I did next was I took a bunch of generic terms that would not do that. And I found hits in certain countries. And then I would go search the same thing hours later, days later. And I did this for like 2 weeks, guys. I've never gotten the same results twice. And not only did I not get the same results, I got contradictory results, extremely contradictory results, completely different time periods, or no search results at all. So it's not historic data. It says that it's not historic data, and it's randomized, it's sampled. It is not some sort of investigatory tool that has any even journalistic usage, in my opinion. That's why nobody else is using it, by the way. There's a reason, they understand that. And then to take it further and try to implicate somebody in some sort of, conspiracy. The other reason, look, I'm a former Green Beret. As a SF guy overseas, you're building your own intelligence. Like a lot of the intelligence that is gathered on a battlefield is from Green Berets, ODAs, right? Operation Detachment Alphas. So there's a lot of that. We run sources. We do a lot of things. And yes, you can find target information when you're building a target package. You definitely can find lots of information on an open source. We call it OSINT, right? Open source intelligence. But what you don't do, and people don't understand this, there is no serious person out there, and definitely not a serious group, that is overseas anywhere, that is pulling up Google and searching people to build target package. It's not a thing for a couple different reasons. You guys know that if you open up Google and you search things, you get one result. You get the results that Google essentially wants you to have. And then if you go over to Brave or you go to some of these other search engines, you're going to get completely different results. Well, when you're trying to build a package, you're trying to get very detailed information. The fact is the government has, and other state-sponsored elements have, not only classified systems, but these are much more powerful search engines that you can find a lot more details. And then, of course, you have the classified search system where we can actually search into records and things like that. So the idea, I mean, it's silly. The idea that we have somebody in Israel or any place that is Google searching these things for intelligence without so much as a VPN, it just strains credulity. I mean, it's not a thing. especially if you're talking about somebody sophisticated. But even then, even if you're talking about like, I don't know, some rogue terrorist, like they're using VPNs, guys. Like it's silly, and it's non-reproducible data. You can look into it. Do it yourself, please. Can you give your opinion on the SR interview with CK Security? You're the best. Thanks for digging in on this deal. You're the only guy that keeps it real. Thanks. How do you feel about CDS9 carry? The CDS9 is actually a really, really nice gun. How do I feel about Sean Ryan's interview? I don't feel like that Sean Ryan knew really that much about anything. I'll just leave it at that. Yeah. I mean, he has such a large platform. What it did do, I mean, really what it did for me was give me an opportunity to know what questions were asked, what questions weren't followed up with enough. But he didn't really understand. I mean, I think he knew headline level information with it, and that's fine. He's, extremely busy guy. He's got other things going on. And of course, it's something that I was very passionate about, and I'm sure many of you out there are passionate about. So you know all the details, right? So you want the guy out there interviewing to know all the details, and it's probably not fair to Sean to expect the level of information that we have on this case. And I think that's what I was expecting, and we didn't get. So that's what I think about that. Could the bullet that hit Charlie possibly been a defective rapid invasion projectile? I can't rip around. And anything's possible because we don't know what we're dealing with. I don't think it's a rip round. Currently, what I think is we most likely have some sort of frangible round. But again, some other things could have taken place where we have a catastrophic failure, whether that it was just it was low velocity, whether that was intended. And I think it would have to be, right? I do believe that he zeroed this rifle. I do believe that he went in practice with it. I do believe that this was planned by Tyler Robinson, who by everyone's account was an intelligent guy. I don't think this is all that complex. I think a 22-year-old with a little bit of brains and Google Maps and then a little bit of, surveillance can actually get out there. And I mean, on foot, foot surveillance. There have been reports that somebody was actually seen several days or weeks prior to where they were actually over the rail, over exactly where Tyler Robinson, that could be him. That could be, look, I was so shocked, and I kind of knew already, right? But when you walk up those stairs and, just you're on the roof, it's just two different surfaces. So, and then you walk right up to this railing. It's a 3-foot railing. It's like you jump over that and you move 50 feet and you're right where he was. There's no obstacle there. There's nothing hard about it. What I do know is that the camera that we saw footage from, the potato that was mentioned earlier, and it is because it's actually really far away. So they're cropped way in. It's pixelated. It's a garbage camera. I only say it's a garbage camera. All right, it's probably a 4K camera, but it's viewing 180 degrees, squeezed down to 4K. So it's probably more like a 1080 at best, and then you zoom way in to cover the distance. Without a doubt, though, that person's movements are on that camera. Now, I don't know that we're going to be able to see recoil. I don't think we're going to be able to see any sort of, you're not going to see muzzle flash, but you might be able to see a muzzle blast. All right, you may be able to see that gun move. I don't think we're going to be able to see any of those things. What I think we're going to be able to see is if what is alleged is true, somebody jumps over that railing, gets behind that little wall, ends up moving out there, gets down on their hands and knees, and then ends up low crawling into the final position. And then, we see at some point that person gets up, runs, all the stuff that we think we may or may not, again, I know some of you don't think it was him or whatever else is fine. But if that footage exists, and I feel pretty strongly that it does, we're going to see most of that. And there's like almost 2,000 cameras or something like that on that campus. So we're going to see lots of footage if it is indeed Tyler. Gary, Cash, and Dan are taking down the 764 network. They are a major, I know what they are. Dan announced 2 days ago, some Antifa, our 764, arrest them all. So we just recently had BX on. If you haven't watched that interview, she has been digging into 764 and 09A, Order of Nine Angles, which is a very similar satanic PDF cult. And that's not just the only thing. She ended up, if you're not following BX on X, please go follow her. The work that she's doing is nuts. She's come under a lot of attack, and I don't even understand it by certain individuals. But she is literally, some of the work she's done has led to lots of different arrests. What she was doing is kind of tied into the class action lawsuit against Roblox. She has been breaking the story or bringing it to the attention of 764 and also 716. I think I maybe get something confused. No, I think it's the 716 network. I don't know. Too many numbers. I'm too tired. The point being is that she's doing a lot of good work with this. So go check out BX. She's great. I did a full interview with her. She needs more support, and she's doing it all on her own. And she's not like some big social media star. She's not making money off this stuff. She's doing it on her own because she enjoys it. Respect. Hope your voice gets better, and whatever has you horse gets better. Sleep. Don't forget to take a break. I will, Sean. Thank you very much. A little bit of sick and then up all night, working, doing some things. Yeah, look, I understand the implication here. I think we're influenced by a lot of countries. I don't want to get just hung up on Israel. Look, I don't think we should be sending money to anybody. We're broke. We're $37 trillion in debt. Like, we can't afford to take care of our own people. We can't afford our own infrastructure. We're spending more and more. All the people, especially the middle class, and to some extent the wealthy as well, are getting taxed. We got to change some things. We're being controlled. You know what? Who we're being controlled with, whether it's through other countries or whatever else. Our politicians have been selling us down the river for a really long time. They've been so generous with the money that we've earned. They're just smoozing it up and doing a lot of great things for a lot of other countries and a lot of other people. And they've lost sight of, we produce nothing in this country anymore. That's got to change. And if nothing else, that has to change for national defense reasons. We saw what happened during COVID. Like, if we started, I don't think we could sustain a world war. If China cut us off from manufacturing, and if some of the other Asian countries cut us off from manufacturing, India, Mexico, or whatever else, we produce nothing in this country anymore. And we got to get to where we are energy independent. We got to get to where we are production independent. And I don't have an answer for you on all that stuff, but I know a lot of this was because we were sold on NAFTA and some of these other international trade agreements that just screwed, especially the middle class, and took all the production that we had here in this country and what made our country great and what helped us win World War II, by the way. That's all gone. Like AM says, please hit the like and subscribe button. We appreciate you. Con said it too. Good job, Con. Thanks, buddy. Because I always forget. Yeah. I mean, everything is a psyop. And that's the thing is we've got to be, we got to, we just got to be aware. You got to be smart. You got to be skeptical of everything. Everything that comes in, especially if I want to believe it, right? We've all done that, right? We've all gotten that meme that we thought was right, and it scratched a political itch of ours or an ideological itch. We shared it, and then come to find out, or whatever, right? So, you just can't take stuff at face value. You got to research it a little bit, and then you got to also just be aware of your own biases. But we're always playing a psyop on ourselves as well, right? We're always like, nah, this ain't and we don't really know. I don't know. Or we just accept things like, all right, this came from a source that I like. There's no good sources. Everything I say, fucking look it up. Like, make sure that I'm telling you the truth. Everything that anyone that you like says, go back, do some research, and do it regularly, not just once, all the time. This is a good prayer. Good Lord, help us, all protect us from the division and sins by those in control. Amen. And that's one of the things that I see that's happening here, right? The vast majority of people that are looking into the Charlie Kirk investigation, the vast majority of us are probably further right, exceptions to every rule. So we're further right than most. Very conservative. I don't know. I don't even know what box I want to put myself in. Somewhere in between libertarian and conservative. I believe in the Constitution. That's whoever's down with the Constitution, I'll get in that basket. And because it's so nuts to me, man. It's like we can't even have a conversation. If I say like, hey, look, I believe this because of the evidence. Somebody in there is gonna be like, you're paid by Israel. You're a Fed. Whatever. Like we were just divided when 99% of what we believe we agree on. But because of this 1%, that for some reason, that one thing, we see each other as an enemy, and now we're fractured and divided over that. It's stupid. Like, we can't have disagreement in this country anymore. Is that really where we're at? It's bananas to me. Yeah, I disagree with this. I think that it's so overblown. I'll just be honest with you. Like I have some problems with Candace and what she says, how she says it, a lot of stuff from that. All right. Okay. If you love Candace, fine. All right. Doesn't mean that we can't be friends because I don't like Candace. And it's not even I don't like Candace. I don't like some of the things that she's doing. And I think she's taking things a little too far. And one of these is just that. She's the only one. There's not. There's lots of people out there that are Charlie's friend that are more of an inside loop, to include Erica, by the way, that understand what's going on, that do have these conversations with law enforcement, that are being briefed. Candace is definitely the most vocal. I don't know that means a whole lot. Trump is leading the pack, and has immunity. They don't. I don't know what you mean. I probably missed something there. BW Rabola. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Should try to get CK security guard on for a interview. Oh, so I guess you missed it. Brian Harpole, he was here Sunday. He actually got here Saturday. So I did a 3.5 hour interview with him. That will be released probably Saturday, maybe Sunday, depending on how we get that edited. So we're there, and I got more coming for you on that too. I would really like to see Gary interview the security personnel and members of TPUSA. Gary, you do a great job and would respectfully ask the tough questions, unlike other interviews. Thanks, Gary. I appreciate that, Lucas. Thank you for that very generous super chat. I would love to get TPUSA on. We are going to get some more of the security personnel. We had Brian on. And one of the things that I would ask you, because we may have some more coming soon, if there's a question that I didn't ask, again, write it down, send it to me. That was one of the things that, I put out a census on X, I think Friday night, maybe even Saturday. Like, if you guys had questions for the security personnel, what would they be? And several people sent those in, and I made sure I read those and gave them credit for that. Big shout out to Piper out there. She gave me several that were really good. Some of those I actually included into my interview. The other ones I saved to the end, but I also gave Piper credit for the ones that I used first. Really good job. If you're not following Piper on X, go follow her. She breaks a lot of good stuff. She provides me a lot of information. Anytime that I'm missing pictures or videos, I'm like, Piper, I know I saw this picture. I know I saw this video. And she's all over it. Also, Jane Doe, let me make sure Jane Doe, she breaks a lot of great stories. She is a great source of information. Go check her out. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that, CJ. CJ Carenti right here. Again, folks, he was the guy that contributed the vast majority of time and effort. I went out there and did all the stuff that I brought him a whole bag of crap that he had to go through and render 1,000 times on some supercomputers and get it down to something manageable and usable. And we're very grateful, CJ. So thank you very much. Thank you for that. How about deleted footage of Tyler turning himself in? What do you think about Tucker's reveal about Thomas Crooks, both shooters dating furries? So a couple of elements of that I actually, so I'm going to share this screen with you right there. I was actually planning on doing the show tonight on Crooks and really kind of going over some of the things that Tucker said. I'll come back to that. Let me share the screen. Let me share because I was just bringing up Miss Jane Doe, and she has something relevant on with this. So there's some confusion. Make sure my screen is sharing, and I'll pull this down real quick. I'm going to put your thing back up too. All right. So make sure I can see this. Again, go follow her, Jane Doe, I know it's kind of small on your screens. She actually reported this is a very important point to take note of in response doc from Washington County Sheriff Office. It in no way says the video is missing, destroyed, or non-existent. Holding room. At this time, this portion of your request is denied. The records you're requesting are subject to pending investigation or classified as protected pursuant to Utah code. The preemptive release of the records could reasonably interfere criminal enforcement proceedings and the criminal prosecution of the subject and would create a danger of depriving the subject of a fair trial or impartial hearing. So you can go check this out. This was a follow-up of that story. So apparently they're not destroyed, but they are classified internally for Utah. Take that for what that is. She actually reported on some of the information that Tucker shared and also ended up being Miranda Devine, that a couple of the accounts have been proven that there was one or two that they were tying to Thomas Crooks. She's reporting, and I know nothing about this, but she's usually pretty solid. You guys go check it out and assess it for yourself. That one or two of those, and specifically the one talking about furry stuff. Now, with all that being said, I don't know, a couple months after Butler, one of the things that I genuinely believe, and I still think is happening, folks, I genuinely believe, and I think this is a possibility, I do believe that Tyler Robinson is the one that shot. I also believe that there is I believe there are programs out there that have, come after MK Ultra and have continued to be developed, not in just this country and other countries. And I think, I think it's pretty easy. As a matter of fact, I think it's easier to target people, to manipulate them psychologically, to find the people that are manipulable. I think there's a very clear profile, and it may not just be these furry trans kids. I think there's probably a lot of people out there that they've kind of got it formulated and they understand how these things work. And just through algorithms, they can find a whole bunch of them, and not everyone they're going to be able to manipulate to the point where they can direct them to action. But I think there's a lot out there that they can. And I think that is very possible that is what has happened to both Thomas Crooks. That's the other thing too. Like, we know nothing about Thomas Crooks. I mean, Tucker made all the same points that a lot of us have been making for a couple of years now. Like, we know nothing about that guy. You owe us that. He's dead. The same thing with Stephen Paddock, the Las Vegas shooter. Like, the fact that we know nothing about those people is mind-boggling. And it's literally just the federal government saying, you're not the boss of me. I don't owe you anything. It's a problem. Same thing with the Epstein files. Same thing with Matt Heidelberger. There's a whole bunch of stuff. When is Tyler Robinson's next court date? I believe it's January 8th or something like that. It's a great question. I know it's early part of January. Somebody find that and throw that up there. We have to start by living within our means. Imagine how expensive it would be to buy only American products. Golden handcuffs, $1,000 per month for jacked up pickup is not very reasonable. Starts at home gear. I agree, Sean, 100% on this. I was thinking about this the other day. They came out with, it's one of these things that we hear a lot about on radio and everywhere else. It's like, a single income used to be able to produce a house, a fairly well-to-do family, a car, and all these other things. And then I started thinking about that. I'm like, yeah, but in like the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, like we also didn't have that house like full of electronics, like 47 different computers and handhelds and all the other accoutrements. And like, if you are, a single family home, chances are you got 3 or 4 cars. Each one of those cars are maxed out as far as features. Like we lived differently too. I think we could live on one income if we went back to that standard of living and lived within our means and realized like it's the personal relationships and the things that aren't powered by electricity that actually make us happy. Get out in the yard. I don't know. So it's a great point, Sean. I agree with you totally. I was just listening to Brian Harpole's interview. He said he heard the gunshot and then he heard the bullet hit Charlie's neck. How is that possible? 30-06 is supersonic. I was having this conversation with somebody on Twitter earlier. First of all, we have this traumatic event. I think there's a lot going on here. Possibilities. Most of this is speculation, but hear me out. Number one, you have this traumatic event that takes place. That is a very minor detail when all is said and done. Number one, he could remember it wrong. Number two, the other thing that is a fact is it's 140 yards, folks. It's not 800 yards, 600 yards, 700 yards. When we're out shooting long range, it's usually around 400 yards. You start hearing that delay. 140 yards, the difference between the gun going off and a sound that of the round hitting the target, which by the way, I think was his spine. That's the crack that we're hearing. Almost indistinguishable. We're talking about milliseconds in between there. And here's the other part of this. So when a sound is produced, just like the gunfire, it takes time for that gunfire, the report of the gun to get to our ears, and obviously it's that sound to get to the target. Well, the round hits Charlie in this case, and then it does take some time for that sound to get from Charlie to the hearer's ears. And then on top of that, we throw in the fact that we're in a real, folks, that place, you hear all kinds of weird stuff. It is an amphitheater, and it's not just an amphitheater. Everything is amplified, but then it is so, there's so many facets of what's going on. Like sound just bounces all around there. And then, of course, under stress, you get auditory and ocular occlusion, without a doubt. You get tunnel vision and you drown out certain sounds. And then with the stress of everything. So number one, his perception could be off. Number two, he could be hearing exactly what he says he hears, because sound here to it hitting milliseconds apart. It's not that big of a different distance difference. And then it does take a little bit for the sound that's actually making an impact there to get to the listener's ears. So between the two, that's probably all going to blend together. Your brain might pick one of those or over the other. And remember that more distinctly, and then think that you're hearing that first. Or, under the stress of everything, just remember things slightly different. Maybe, because I can tell you, I've been in this situation, right? I've heard people get hit, and it's very distinct, and you know what it sounds like, and you realize what's happening. And I don't even know if I remember hearing the actual gunshot. So again, under stress, a lot of things happen. Memories. Look, I'll tell you right now, I wish everybody had the chance to interact with Brian. I genuinely believe that he is one of the most sincere, one of the nicest guys I've ever met. I think all throughout that interview, he was sincere. I don't feel like he was holding anything back. Listening to them and listening to him and hearing what they're going through, and him understanding that not just him, and mainly he was there to talk for his men, because he's like, look, Gary, I'm an older guy. I'm okay. But we got a lot of younger guys here that, they still have families to feed. They got a long career ahead of them. And I don't want, whether they're in the security industry or not, this pervasive idea that they were in on it killing Charlie. I reject that outright. I've never believed that, but after meeting them, I'm telling you right now, don't believe me. I don't care. I'm just telling you right now, I know for a fact, like based on everything I saw, based on our conversation, like they were not in on it. That's like one of the things. Do I know for a fact that TPUSA wasn't doing something? I don't think they were, to be honest with you. But I'm telling you, I don't believe that. And I think everybody that would spend 10 minutes with these guys and would quit looking at them and this weird thing and some of this, look, some of the PSYOP stuff that has been done to them, taking those stills, freezing it with Rick Cutler and making it look like the guy was grimacing. They both were behind that. The idea they're going to be sitting there smiling is nonsense. And here's the crazy thing, and I'm just going to give you my opinion on this. It's not my opinion. This is a fact. All right. When you watch that whole thing take place in real time, that is not a moment that you'll even pick up on where he's supposedly smiling. What somebody did, and I feel that this was intentional. I feel that this was not just a grift. I think there was something more manipulative, evil, whatever you want to call it, right? They slowed everything down and they took a quick still frame of him that, and again, if you just saw that picture, you'd be like, I don't know what's going on there. It doesn't really look like a smile. But then what they did was they programmed all of us. They're like, look at this guy smiling. And then they sent that out. And that's what people perceive. They're not smiling. They're just not. If you want to believe that, you're welcome to. We hit that one. Sorry, YouTube hasn't been pushing notifications a lot of my subscription, but can't wait to see the interview. Thanks for your guys. That's something that we have a real problem with all the time. Is make sure you like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, but then go hit the bell if you want to see our content. Hit select all. Sometimes it helps. Sometimes it doesn't. Us being a gun channel and getting into some of this stuff, I'm telling you right now, YouTube doesn't like us. We're no friend. YouTube's no friend of ours. I wish we could just go to Rumble, but Rumble sucks. We definitely get 10x the views on YouTube, and it's just a better platform until hopefully one day it's not. Google is not our friend. Great work, Gary 160 is in the house. What's up, Jack Sparrow? He mentioned you on Sean Ryan show that you were 95% correct. I know you probably don't want to give up too much before the show drops. You mentioned NDA. Is that related to body armor? No, the NDA is not related to body armor. He was not talking about body armor on the part that I was being 95% right. He was talking about other elements of that, including some of the medical stuff. Just to be clear, I've covered this several weeks ago. I don't believe that Charlie was wearing body armor at this point. I've gotten solid confirmation. One of them was from Brian. Those were conversations that his security staff was having. They wanted him to wear body armor, and he wasn't doing it. Anyways, a lot of that information will come out. And I just want to clarify, that was one of the first things that I saw. But I also want to say from the beginning, when I was talking about the body armor, again, we got a lot going on, a high-speed event. It explained a lot. I will tell you that right now. But I was wrong. But I also stated in that, look, I'm speculating. I think this is what happened. I could be wrong. And then, within a couple days, within probably the next day, I think it was actually the next day, some additional pictures, better pictures came out. It looked less like he had body armor on. Some of those clearer pictures where you could see them. And I immediately, that live stream, I said, hey guys, because I'm always going to be honest with you, whether I'm right, wrong, or indifferent. I mean, I'm going to tell you. And number one, it's always just smart to say, look, I'm speculating on this. I'm giving you fact. I'm pretty solid on those. But if I find something's wrong, I'm going to come back and correct the record. But the point being is that very night, the following night, I was doing a live stream and I literally was getting some pictures in and I showed those to the audience. I was like, look, guys, I think I'm wrong on the body armor. Now, there were some other things that came up later that was like, hey, look, I think there's still a small possibility he could be wearing some low pro body armor. Anyways, we found that that was not correct. So I just want to make sure that the record is corrected and that you guys know what I know. I think Charlie was shot from the roof for sure. Other theories make no sense. I just can't get over why he would put it in text knowing the police would see it, pled not guilty, and get DQ after. Well, look, some of those things don't make sense. I'm with you. We're also trying to put ourselves in the mind of somebody that's willing to do that to begin with. There's a lot of weird things going on there. Anyways, I'll just leave it at that. Look, those guys were not. If you guys haven't watched the Turkey Tom video, I think it's pretty compelling. I think you need to watch that and kind of get a look into what was going on in that apartment. You really need to watch that. Whatever, regardless of whatever you believe, you need to expose yourself to multiple things, and you need to challenge your own theories. And that's one of the things I've always done is I've brought other people on to convince me of something else. Even when I was like just kind of neutral, still kind of taking things in and trying to, through evidence, come to a conclusion. Not coming to a conclusion and then looking for evidence. That's not the right way to go about this. That's getting the cart before the horse. But even to this very day, I'll happily have anybody come on and present what they believe to be evidence. And I want the truth. I don't want to be right. I don't want something to be what happened. I want the truth. That's what we should all be searching for. And you gotta be open to being challenged by other people. And if you're not, then you're not really a truth seeker. You're creating an echo chamber. Not sure you covered it yet, but thoughts on the Egyptian plane thing Candace was talking about. Well, this is what I think about, and I want you to listen to this because I think there's some good points made in this video that I'm going to show you real quick. There we go. This one right here. I'll be honest with you. I'm not the biggest fan of Nick Fuentes, but let's play.
Did you see Candace's big whoop today was about the Egyptian planes and how their location and Erica's overlapped more than 60 times and they were actually tracking her and not in lol.
Yeah, I love the idea that, like,
Let me start this up.
Did you see Candace's big whoop today was about the Egyptian planes and how their location and Erica's overlapped more than 60 times and they were actually tracking her and not in lol.
Yeah, I love the idea that, like, if like Israel is tracking Erica Kirk, they're going to send a military cargo plane. Like, that's inconspicuous. Do you know how much money that would cost? Do you know how many millions and millions of dollars it would?
I do want to correct the record here. Those are not military cargo planes. They are Gulfstreams. So they're not as conspicuous. I think he just doesn't know what he's talking about on that piece. The rest of it.
Cost to fuel and to fly a military cargo plane 70 places to follow her around. You're telling me that the Mossad didn't choose something more inconspicuous? Like, no, Mossad isn't flying on a commercial jet. They're not flying on a small aircraft. No, Mossad is tracking Erica Kirk, the spouse of a nonprofit leader, in an Egyptian military cargo aircraft. As if that's inconspicuous. Like, Erica Kirk lands on the tarmac. The steps come down, she gets off, and she sees a giant Egyptian military cargo plane landing right beside her for the 70th time. And she goes, that's weird. What's this Egyptian military cargo plane doing at this small airport in Provo? That same one that's been following me around the country. Yeah, that's inconspicuous. They did that to cover up for a couple of $1 million being embezzled in Turning Point. Like, does that even make sense? It's totally insane, man.
77 cent 20.
All right. So he's got some things wrong there. So let's get that straight. Number one, these are Gulfstream jets, so they're not super conspicuous. All right. They are fairly inconspicuous. That being said, the rest of that resonates with me. Like, I don't understand. Look, we have lots of ways to track, especially, okay, the implication from Candace, and I've watched several episodes on this. I do want to look more into this, and I'm open to some sort of nexus being here with all this stuff, right? I'm fine with that. But at face value, it doesn't make sense to me. Why are they sending jets? Like, we can electronically surveil individuals. They can target them in 100 different ways. They can track them. I don't like, why are we sending jets? That needs to be explained to me. There's a lot cheaper, easier ways to go about doing it. So that challenges a little bit my common sense and what I know about foreign adversarial surveillance and how those things work, whether it's actually Egypt or Israel to begin with. Now, there are within Provo, I forgot there is a aircraft company that services Gulfstreams, and there could be something there. And I think they're actually in Delaware as well. I don't know if that answers all of that, or I don't know. Look, I don't know enough to comment detailed on it. I've seen 90% of what Candace has talked about on there. What I never seem to get out of her is like, okay, like, what does it mean? Like, we never quite get to a conclusion. It's kind of interesting. And I feel like that's what happens a lot on that show, is like, we kind of get led along and then we introduce a new character and like, tell me what this means. And I don't want innuendo. I don't want these vagaries, right? I want some specifics. And we never quite get there. And that's one of the problems that I have with her. And I also don't like the fact that she casts dispersions on people. And then her and the people that watch her do sit there and say, like, oh, she never accused anyone individually. You're playing games. All right. You are like, you're insulting my intelligence because I know what you're doing. They know what you're doing. And by the way, everyone else is coming to that conclusion. Like, the people that are watching Candace are like, hey, you know what? TPUSA is in on it. Candace never said that. She, I have people come to my channel and like leave content. Well, Candace said this, this, and this. I'm like, okay, well, send me the link for that so I can see that she said that. And then I go there and she actually never said that, but she insinuates there's a lot of innuendo and we're leading people to that conclusion, but she gets right up to the edge and she backs away. And I don't find that honorable, man. I don't. If you're going to accuse somebody, do it outright. If you're not going to accuse somebody, there's ways to report that information without getting up to that line. And again, this goes back to what I said at the beginning of this. That's a principle issue. That's not an American principle. We don't accuse people of murder conspiracy without some really hard evidence. You need more than feels. You need more than vibes. You need more than your superpowers being, I can just tell. You need more than that. And that's when we get to that serious, it's like when we're talking about that serious, and the problem is like there's real people involved. And you have to think about the consequences of you being wrong with that. Because like those people are getting death threats, by the way. They're getting death threats. There could be crazies out there that are going to target them because of that. Those are all real things. Those are real consequences. And not only that, like those people have families that, these kids have to go to school and all their friends know that their dad was this, or they work for TPUSA or whatever else. And they're having to live with that. And the other part of this is whether it's ever said directly or not, Erica does get implicated in this. And I have a problem with that too. I see all of these people, until I have other evidence, I see all of these people as victims of somebody killing their friend, their father, their husband, like until we have evidence. And it's okay to investigate, but it's not okay to insinuate that until you have real hard evidence. I have a problem with that. I think that's morally wrong. I really do. Yeah. Does Charlie Kirk's detail confirm if EMTs were on site with the trauma bike? If so, were they not allowed to treat him? Instead, Charlie Kirk was taken off site. Do I want to cover some of that now? You know what? Let's wait for the interview for that because we go into a lot of depth with that. Guys, that's one of the things that we do here. My company is one of the few companies on the East Coast. We are NAEMT. We are a certified training provider for NAEMT, National Association of Emergency Medical Technicians. I push guns, self-defense, all those things. The most important course you could ever take is we call it emergency medicine, traumatic injury response, but really what it is a TECC, Tactical Emergency Casualty Care, and TCCC, Tactical Combat Casualty Care. We push that stuff. There are certain standardized best practices that you do in a tactical environment that are very different than, and what I mean by tactical environment, when you are under fire. And what a security team is going to do that they should do that may look odd to you. And especially if you're talking about AEDs, like what I can tell you for certain, there was nothing, I'll leave it at this. Number one, go get training. It's the most important thing you can do. You're 10 times more likely to save a life with a med kit than you are with a gun. If you carry a gun, you need a med kit. You can't always carry a gun. You can always carry a med kit. I carried trauma kits with me all over the world where a lot of times I couldn't carry a gun. There's nothing that EMT would have handed them that they didn't have or would have been helpful. We'll leave it at that. And by the way, when those EMTs came up, they already had Charlie in the car. So like they were already moving toward the hospital, and we cover that in depth. I think you get a lot. And I asked a lot of questions, and we went back and we hit a lot of details. I know what people wanted to know about that. And it's fair. Respectfully, I have to say one major way any detective finds evidence to ask questions. There's nothing wrong with asking questions. There's a difference between asking questions and leading people to believe something. There's a clear difference in that. We're all asking questions. But if I ask, okay, well, I don't even know how to, look, there's clear examples where, oh, here we go. Matter of fact, I got you covered. I forgot that I had a actual example. Let's see what the difference is here. Is this asking questions? You tell me if this is asking questions. I'm going to remove your thing, and we're going to play this.
And I just want to know why, Charlie. I want to know why the decision was made to murder Charlie Kirk, a decision that very clearly had to be approved by Charlie's friends. That's all I have. I want to know why. I think we deserve to know why.
That is an accusation in the guise of a question. His friends killed him. His friends had to give permission. Like, that's messed up. She does not have proof that they killed him. She does not have proof that they had to give permission for him to die. And that's a real problem. That's wrong. Like, as Americans, we should say, hey, look, nothing wrong with asking questions. Asking that question, which is really accusing someone in the form of a question, is morally, it's not acceptable. It shouldn't be. Really shouldn't. All right. Let's get a few more questions in here. And I'm jumping in here into some of these comments that are pretty bizarre. All right. Why didn't TPUSA arrange for the ambulance to be there with professional EMTs? All right. So this is one of the things that we get into a little bit, and I'll cover this here. Folks, there are, by insurance definitions, but beyond that, just responsibility definitions. There are responsibilities of the facility that is clearly their responsibility. And then there are the security team. And I'm going to kind of leave that at that part. But here's the thing with the ambulance that really kind of frustrates me. Number one, there's 45,000 students that are enrolled into UVU. It's actually 46.7, something like that. So a little over 45,000 students that are enrolled at UVU. I'm sure there's not 46,000 students there at UVU every single day, but I bet there's 10, 15, 12,000 students there. We need to understand that from a security standpoint, there really isn't a precedent. And I know you guys are going to point to Trump. Trump is a politician. Trump has a Secret Service. When we're talking about what's going on with Charlie, there's not really a precedent where we have a sniper event. It is a very, very extremely low probability. Now, here's what we do see all the time. All the time, we see active shooters at schools, in universities, and things like that. So we have 10 to 15,000 students there every single day that could have, it is a higher likelihood that we would have someone like Charlie assassinated versus having a active shooting event. And by the way, that could have been the same thing, right? Like we could have an active shooter that actually, and we did, but I mean, we could have had somebody that was actively down on the ground, not just targeting him, something more along the lines of Butler where other people were killed, or what we see in other active shooting events, right? Someone down on the ground with a high capacity firearm, semi-automatic. That could have ended up much worse than it was. And of course, we lost Charlie. That being said, the risk is always there. Why are there not ambulances at a school anyhow? Like, why is there not ambulances at every school? And by the way, this is one of the things, I have a nonprofit. I've pushed for school, church, and business security, safety. And the big thing here is schools. We know that there's a threat. We've done nothing. We've done nothing to make our kids safer. We have, and by the way, I worked for the federal government. And did security work. And I know what the security standards are for these federal buildings to protect bureaucrats. We spend a lot of money in every single one of those. We could put easy protocols and physical security measures in place in every single school. It would cost almost nothing. And whatever it costs, it'd be well worth it, but almost nothing in the scheme of things, and make our kids so much safer, and it make it almost impossible. So where we could mitigate, deter, detect, and be able to react to any sort of threat. Like there's guidelines for this stuff. This is already figured out. We could be implementing this across the nation. And all we do is not send a couple of checks overseas. We could easily secure all of our schools. And by the way, I think we should have some sort of armed personnel at our schools. So the point here is there's not much more risk for Charlie being there and there being an ambulance. And by the way, he's been to hundreds of other events. Most of the time when you're talking about a college debate, usually when there's a event with an ambulance, we're talking about a sporting event. I'm not saying they shouldn't have, but what I am saying for sure is that is a facility responsibility. I know some of you are going to argue with me with that. That is a facility responsibility. And there's a lot of other responsibilities that would fall on the facility itself that are outside the capabilities of a personal security detail or a close protection detail. That's what they are. They're close protection. That's all that they can do. Unless you start hiring, if TPUSA decided, all right, we think there's this greater threat. We're going to not only have a close protection detail, but now we're going to hire drone operators. We are going to hire a counter sniper team. And by the way, what's a more likelihood would be easier to take out Charlie would be a vehicle ambush. Are we going to start getting up armors? Because that happens in the United States all the time. I actually looked this up the other day. It was like 400, somewhere around 400 vehicle-related shootings per year. How often do we have somebody assassinated? And by the way, that is the number one, and it's so much easier, by the way. And that's one of the things that we see overseas in Mexico and everywhere else, where these famous people, whether they be politicians, dignitary, whatever they are, they're assassinated in vehicles. That's a greater threat than being shot from a distance on a podium. That's what happened because that's the vulnerability that was exploited. With that being said, if you stop and look back at all the things that were actually unmitigated and all the different vulnerabilities that I don't care what level of security you have, there's always going to be vulnerabilities. People talk about drones. Drones are great. All right. There's some capabilities there. To cover that facility for drones, you would need probably 3 to 4 drones. It's like 120, 150 acre area. And that's not the entire part. We had 150 acres somewhere around there that we took an original scan of, and we had to cut it down. But to cover where you could potentially have a distant shooter, and I don't like to say sniper because that's not what they are, you would have to have at least 4 drones up at any one time. That means you actually need probably 6 drones, so that when you're changing out batteries, because they have a flight time of about 30 minutes or so. So if you're changing out batteries, so you need 4 other guys, maybe 5 other guys, maybe 6 other guys just to cover the drones. And drones aren't perfect. Look, if there was a drone in the air, I still think that all that would have done is one of 2 things. Number one, all you got to do is find some cover, some overhead cover. All right. So that wouldn't have stopped that event if somebody was shooting through a window or something like that. The other thing is you can see a drone and you can see where they're looking. So Tyler probably needed probably about a minute to, if he had that gun to assemble the gun, it's 2 screws to put an action and stock together, and then to move out to that point. And from that, he needs 15 seconds. So a drone wouldn't necessarily have stopped it. It could have been some sort of deterrent. There's no doubt about that. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't. That needs to be implemented as standard operating procedure for security, for sure. But there's some challenges around there. I cover it more in depth in that interview. The other thing that I will do is I'll definitely do a live stream a day or 2 after the interview where I will take additional questions, where you guys can hammer me for questions I didn't think of or whatever else. And then, by the way, Brian Harpool has gave me a soft yes, really a hard yes, of actually coming on, and we'll do a live stream and he will take questions personally. So, he's like, yeah, I would be up for that. He wants to get the truth out there. It's not going to, it's not going to assuage everybody, but the truth's the truth. All right. Yeah, look, hold on. Ambiguous for a reason. Riz, that's disingenuous. Like, we know who she's talking about. She's talking about Mikey McCoy. She's talking about Andrew Covelt. She's talking about everybody on the command team and the executive staff. So that's not, I'm just telling you, that little bit of ambiguity, it's not right, man. It's not right with the level of evidence that she has to assert that, and the way, the confidence at which she asserts it is wrong. She's convincing a lot of people that she knows 100% that these people are guilty of planning on having Charlie killed. That's a problem. It's wrong. It's immoral. It shouldn't be done, period. All right. Regarding Candace, the word is reprehensible. Only standing ovation I've ever gotten was a speech on school security. We need ex-military in the schools, 100%. We need ex-military. We need armed guards. There's definitely ways that we can easily compartmentalize to where even if somebody, number one, there's lots of different ways we can deter any sort of entry. Like, again, you go into some of these extremely nice federal buildings. They don't feel like prisons. They got multiple millions of dollars worth of security, physical security features, kind of low profile protocols built in. It doesn't feel like security, or it doesn't feel like a prison, but you still feel safe. And all of those things can be implemented into a school, and we could end school shootings forever. A couple $1 million per school. Not even that. Like, let me tell you a story. We went to I used to do security assessment. Well, we still do. Like, doing a security assessment for a school. And we were trying to get this done. And we were working some grants and doing some other things. And we went through the school, very large school. I think it was around 6,000 students, a high school. And what we ended up coming up with was about $180,000 for the school to get some real effective security features put into place. $180,000. And we went to a board meeting, and long story short, we were told, no, we couldn't do it right now because they had this AstroTurf football field that was green and they needed it blue. And turning the AstroTurf football field from green to blue was going to cost $500,000, and that was the priority. That's the level at which we value our kids' safety and security in schools. Even though for about a week or two after one of these shootings, we're all outraged, like, oh, I got to change. And then, I don't know, something else comes on the news and we forgot all about it. We send our kids off to school and, inshallah, hopefully they come back. I think it's nonsense, crazy to me. Does Brian have any idea he will be a witness at the trial if there is one? I don't think right now that they have been, folks, my brain's going. Anyways, I don't think they're gonna be a witness right now. So would you go on SR show? Would love to see a collab to discuss demo accurate, true media production. Need more voices with integrity. You're the real deal. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, look, I'd go on any show. Look, here's my message outside of all this, man. What I've been doing with Paramount for the last, we opened up Paramount in our first training year was 2015. And for those of you guys that don't know, so what we're a training company first and foremost, but then we slowly kind of got into, almost out of necessity, got into retail sales. So a large majority of our revenue is retail. We still do a lot of training, all the things. But the retail revenue makes things happen, makes this channel possible, by the way. Like the pennies that I get from YouTube, I don't take any other outside sources of income. I don't take any sponsors right now. I may entertain, I've turned down a lot of sponsors. I don't want to get there. If I can find the right sponsors. The other thing I'm kind of into is like health and wellness and supplements. If you guys aren't taking methylene blue, you probably should look into that. I'm a big proponent of that. So anyways, there's some things that I would do. I just haven't found the right partners to do that with. It felt right. So long story short, that's what we do. And train military, law enforcement, civilians. A large, not by design, but a large majority of who we train is primarily civilians. And I'm glad to do that. I actually prefer that. We have no military or government contracts. That always comes up. I'm always going to be an open book with you guys. We're not influenced by anybody. Like I've said it 100 times, I would die before I let my voice be influenced by money, by a contract, that idea disgusts me. Anyways, so that's what we do. And then we went full time. I was still working on, I'll tell you, I used to work for the Department of State Diplomatic Security. This is what I used to do. I used to train protective agents going overseas, tactical agents. So I was teaching, I was a special tactics instructor. So I was teaching them room entry, hand-to-hand, a lot of things, right? Tactics, small unit tactics, close protection work, all of that stuff. And then later on, I took over a unit at the Department of State Diplomatic Security where I was teaching surveillance detection, situational awareness. Did that for a while. Anyways, in 2023, we decided we were at a point where we could do full-time, Paramount full-time. And that's what we do. I do want to get heavier into media. And the point of all of that is, look, my passion is to make Americans more self-sufficient, self-reliant, make sure that they can protect themselves, make sure that they can take care of themselves if there is a medical emergency, because, when seconds count, helps is minutes away, whether we're talking about a self-defense situation or we're talking about a medical solution. You got to be able to, you got to know what to do. And you got to have the training, you got to be able to do it effectively, and you got to have the right kit and know how to use that kit. And that's what I want. And then, of course, we share our message about firearms and training and politics. And I get on here and I opine. So anyways, I think that's a good, hold on. Texas has schools with signs saying staff is carrying. As all of them should be. Staff that want to, I don't think should be forced upon them. Staff that want to should be trained. We've done a lot of training for free for teachers on the medical side. I have offered to bring our entire med staff to schools and give them, free training, and they've turned it down. It's nuts to me. Do you still think Tyler did it? As of right now, I think Tyler did it. All right. I mean, I think you have to discount a lot of evidence. Look, here's the evidence that we have. We have DNA on the rifle. We have DNA on the trigger, his DNA on the spent cartridge, his DNA on the unspent cartridges. We have video surveillance, which we will get more of. And some of this, I'm in a holding pattern. I'm not 100% committed to Tyler because I don't have enough information. As of right now, that makes the most sense to me based on the evidence. We have the testimony of his parents. I know some of you will say, hey, look, his parents, which I reject. All right. And I know this is one of the things that Candace says. Candace says that they are now saying that that's not what they said. Here's the problem that I have with that. If I was in protective custody and I knew that the government was telling the world that I said that my son or one of my kids, admitted to a crime and that I was the one that said that, and none of that was true, there is nothing that you could do to stop me from getting the word out, and not through Candace, through everybody. All right. So I reject that. And here's the thing. If this testimony is not true, the defense is going to be able to put them up on the stand and talk to the parents and say, hey, did you say that Tyler had confessed to you? And we're going to see it. Like everything is either going to be confirmed. And if one of these facts in this charging document, if one of these facts are denied or contested and proven to be correct. Now, look, there could be some weird thing where suddenly the parents have a change of heart, but then they'll be able to bring up, surveillance footage of inside. They'll be able to contest that, right? I don't think that's going to happen. If it did, I would reassess some things. But the point is that either everything in here is going to be confirmed or it's all trash. And we're going to be able to see that at trial or when the evidence comes out, or at some point in time, Tyler's parents are going to have to talk, and they will, especially if they feel like, their son is being wrongfully convicted. So I'm kind of in a holding pattern, but right now that's how I feel. And if you feel differently, that's okay. Heck, I'd volunteer at school. I'm with you. I would do, 2 days a week. I would make it happen. Paramount Tactical's best firearms, long range store, hard stop. Everybody should check it out. Yeah, look, if that's one way that you want to support us, support what we do, ParamountTactical.com. I promise you, we'll take care of you. If you want to come train with us, ParamountTactical.com. We'll take care of you. Most of our instructors are former special operations. All of them have operational experience. This is what I require. You have to have operational experience and you know what you're doing, but not everybody that is good at their job are good instructors. The other thing that I require on top of that is that you have spent at least 5 years, and most of our guys are well beyond that, is either as professional, law enforcement, and or military. And a lot of our guys have both. Like they were instructors and leaders in the military and, some sort of training program, whether that was a special forces instructor. So anyways, we require both. So we have professional instructors that know what they're doing, that have real world experience and, can do things at a high level, and they teach really well too. And we make it fun. We have fun out there. Anyways, folks, with that being said, we're right at 1:58. I'm going to hit like 3 more questions real quick. We're going to go for 2 hours straight. Was there another bullet in the gun? As I understand the charging documents, there was not the spent casing was still in the bolt action, right? So with a bolt action, you close it, you shoot, all right, shoots a projectile downrange, you got to open it, pull it back, it extracts and ejects the spent casing. That was not done. That's what it says in the charging documents and the evidence. There we go. Gray Hughes in the chat, folks. If you guys aren't following Gray, go follow him. Coaching is very different than doing. You were right, Summer. We got some great guys that are great trainers, great coaches. all the things. All right, folks. Well, listen, I really appreciate you tuning in. For those of you who are new, make sure you join us. Normally we do this every Wednesday night. It's usually a hard timeline. And then every now and then we'll, something comes up and we kind of do a spontaneous live stream. And of course, we'll be putting out some new content. We got the Brian Harpool interview that should drop Saturday, worst case scenario Sunday. So stay tuned for that. Like, subscribe, hit that button, all those things. But until next time, stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you soon.